Okay, welcome everyone to this Triathlon 101 Masterclass. So what this Masterclass is about and going to be focused on is the beginner triathlete. Maybe you've entered your first triathlon, maybe you've done a couple, but you're still a little bit hesitant or not sure about what to do next or how to train for your triathlon. So that's what I'm going to go through with you today. So this class is going to focus mainly on the Kapiti Women's Triathlon, which is in February next year. And I'm going to be speaking mainly to that event, but it will also cover and be appropriate for short distance triathlons. So what is a short distance triathlon? Those are ones that are generally under 750 meters for the swim, about 16 or 20 kilometers for the bike, and 5 kilometers for the run. So if you're joining in, welcome. Let me know if you're entered in the Kapiti Women's Triathlon, or if you are doing another triathlon. I'd love to know, and love to know if what you are up to. Okay, so let's crack on. Welcome, no mai haere mai. Thank you for joining me this evening. If you're joining in live, I really appreciate you taking the time out to do it. I am recording this session, so if you need to duck out, you can do so, and I'll send you the recording the next day, as well as those who couldn't make it live, as a few of you have already indicated to me. So as I said, the focus of this masterclass is on the short distance triathlon and the Kapiti Women Triathlon. Now, you might have some questions as you go along, so feel free to pop that in the chat box. If you find the chat box, you can say hi and let me know what event you are doing. And I'll also pop a little bit of information in that chat box, a few links and things as we go along. So remember, what I want you to remember is that everyone is different. What I want you to get out of this masterclass is to increase your knowledge and your confidence a little bit more about your first triathlon event so that you can enjoy the event. It's not about pace, it's not about times, it is about helping you to enjoy it more. So if you do have a specific aim or something that you want to get from this session, pop it in the chat, let me know, and then I'll make sure to address it as I go along. It doesn't need to be anything mind-blowing. Small steps are the key to any success. And if you can't hear me or can't see my screen, let me know now. Hi, Marie. Yes, I am going to deal with transitions later on. Very good point. So we will come to that and I'll make sure to answer it. But if you still have questions when I get to it, pop them in and I'll answer them as well. Okay. So the Kapiti Women's Triathlon is the 26th of Feb 2023. Is that the one you're doing, Marie? The medium distance in the Kapiti one? Cool. So we're going to have some training sessions. I hope you know about those. They're going to start on Saturdays in January. So they'll also be a really good opportunity to come and get a little bit more information. But to start with, let's go into what we are going to be talking about today. So I'll introduce myself, let you know who I am, a little bit more about me. We'll talk about the 3 disciplines and what makes up a triathlon, as well as how to train for each, some tips and a guide there on each of the swim, bike, run, and how to put it all together. Then I'm going to talk about the gear that you need and also maybe the gear that you don't need. It's not as much as you think. And then we're going to come on to event day, how to put it all together, what you need to do that morning. Then I'm going to go into the transition tips and give you some time-saving tips if you're interested in them, to help everything go a little bit more smoothly. So I hope that sounds good. So about me. So my name is Sierra. If you don't already know about me or have heard about me through other avenues or following me on social media, I'm Sparkle Fitness. That's my brand, that's my company. I used to be a lawyer, and then about 2 years ago, I had a complete career change and started a personal training and coaching business aimed at mums. So I do personal training, running, and triathlon coaching, and trying to help mums have that safe return to exercise and any sporting endeavors that they want to do. I'm a runner from way back, from primary school. I did a few triathlons growing up, but swimming was not my forte. And the first triathlon I did as a kid, I walked the length of the pool as soon as I could touch the bottom. But I guess that is what happens when you don't learn to swim as a kid. So we all start from somewhere. I got more serious into triathlon in my late 20s and early 30s. I went pretty much straight into the longer distance of triathlons and endurance events. I'd already been doing a lot of longer running events, particularly those that were hill-based. That was my strength. And I entered my first half Ironman about 2014, I think it was, and then the following year did my first Ironman distance. So that Ironman's a brand, and then the full Ironman distance is a 3.8k swim, 180 k's on the bike, and that 42.2 marathon run at the end, if you're not familiar with it. So on my third Ironman, I came second in my age group. I did a time of 10 hours 18, and that's the fastest I've been able to do so far. And I qualified for the Kona World Championships. So I've got quite a bit of triathlon background and knowledge tucked away there. After that, so that was in 2016, I then had my daughter, and I haven't had the time for a full Ironman since. It is a big commitment. But I have kept involved with local triathlons and smaller events. This December, on the 10th, I am lining up to do the Taupo 70.3, the half distance Ironman event. And mainly that's because this year I have been able to achieve consistency in my training now that my daughter's a little bit older. She's almost 5. And that really is the key message that I want you to take away from basically any chats of mine, that no matter what distance you want to do, no matter what your goal is, the way to achieve it is through consistency, whatever that might look like for you. Stopping and starting, chopping and changing, that's a surefire way to get unmotivated and not see any progress. So I'm also a MumSafe trainer. MumSafe is a registered organisation. We are skilled and trained in working with mums and continually upskilling. I'm a New Zealand accredited coach, registered with REPS, and an Evolution affiliated trainer. I am also now the event coordinator for the Kapiti Women's Triathlon. So I'll be the person that you can come to with any questions about the event, and I will do my best to answer them or find the answers for you. So with all that, let's get into the actual webinar now, starting with the swim, bike, run, the 3 disciplines. What makes up the triathlon? Those 3 things. But what you might not know was that triathlon was actually invented by a running track club in the 1970s because they wanted an alternative way to still keep training but avoid the rigors of running all the time. So the first event consisted of a 10K run, an 8K cycle, and a 500-meter swim. But of course, over the next, oh gosh, what is it, 50 or so years, triathlon has really started to build and surge in popularity, and is known all over the world now with many, many events. Now, this ties into what I suspected with my own running training, is that running is quite hard on the body. The more you run, obviously, the more impact and the more your body has to withstand. So it can be harder to get fitter without running more and then risking injury more. So one way around that is cross training, and then that is effectively what triathlon is that cross training. So 3 disciplines, 3 different things to do. But of course, we're all going to have our favorites. For me, running and cycling is definitely more of my favorite. As I've already alluded to, swimming is not. If you want to pop in the chat box what your sort of maybe least favorite, or the one maybe you struggle with the most, it would be quite interesting. I suspect with most people it's swimming, unless you've had that swimming background. Swimming as an adult can be quite challenging, especially open water swimming. So that's what we are going to start with, is how to train for a triathlon with the swim. Now, the actual event, the Kapiti Women's Tri, is in open water, is in the ocean, but you're not going to do all of your training in the ocean. Obviously, you're going to do a bit of pool swimming. Now, pool swimming and open water swimming are different. They require different skills. So it is important to practice open water swimming as well. Now, I suggest aiming for something like 2 to 3 swims a week, especially if you're starting out, and starting with shorter, more frequent swims, and then build into your swimming fitness and work on your stroke. The risk is that if you just try to do one really long swim, you just end up getting tired, and then any bad habits or deficiencies in your technique will just be exacerbated and repeated. Swimming is highly technical, which is why it can be quite difficult to grasp as an adult if you haven't had any swim training when you are younger. So I really recommend, if you feel like you are struggling, some individual lessons to help break down the stroke and understand what you should be doing more will be really beneficial and can be well worth the investment. Another thing that you can do is join a swim squad, because that is going to give you someone, some eyes on you, and any good swim squad instructor will be able to give you some individual pointers in that group scenario. And again, it can be quite a cost-effective way to get some technique advice, but also then you are going to learn some of those drills, have them explain to you how to do them within the context of that group situation, and you're also going to get that motivation of training with others, which makes pool training a lot more enjoyable. But the swim is only a small part of the triathlon, so obviously that's good news if you're not really a big fan of swimming, as I am. So even if you are struggling with the swimming, you don't have to put a huge amount of effort in to improve your swim. Just do enough to finish the event. You are going to get more gains by spending your energy on improving your biking and your running than you will with your swimming. And also, if you're a bit time poor, you are better to focus your training time on your bike and your run. Again, just do enough swimming to get you confident that you can do the event and your chosen distance. But when you are swimming, don't just swim. That's one of the biggest mistakes that I see beginners make, is that they just jump in the pool and they just swim. They just do laps until they're, too breathless or too tired to do any more. You need to practice different paces, and as I said, doing that drill work to work on your stroke, to get that technique a little bit better, and then you will become more efficient in the water with less effort, and that's what swimming is really all about. The other tip that I have is don't just do freestyle or front crawl. That is obviously the preferred stroke for when you are doing races, one of the fastest strokes, but also the most efficient stroke. But the other strokes like breaststroke and backstroke and even butterfly will all help with the front crawl. And if you're wondering, front crawl is technically the name that a lot of people use for freestyle, but in a true swimming sense, freestyle means doing whatever you want, all of those strokes. Now, as I said, this triathlon's in the ocean, some triathlons are in the lake, most are in the open water. So you're going to need to practice open water swimming, and there are a different set of skills. The main one is sighting and navigation, knowing how to navigate the pool properly, not navigate the pool, and navigate the ocean, the course where you are going. Because in the pool you have the black line to follow, so it's easy. You don't have to really think about where you are going, and any deficiencies or pulls that you might have to one side of your body or the other, you will just automatically correct by following the black line. In the ocean you won't have that, so you may find that you do end up going off to one side and the other, and you end up zigzagging all over the place. What you need to learn for open water is that ability to just lift the head up just enough to pick something off on the distance that is in line with where you need to go. Now that can take a little bit of practice, especially so that you don't swallow water as you are doing it. It will also take a little bit more practice if there is more chop in the water and more waves, as opposed to something that is completely flat. You're also going to have to think about what you're going to do if the event involves a sunrise and you have the sun coming straight into you, which can create a lot of glare and a lot of sunstrike, which will make it quite hard to see as well. So you're going to need, ideally you'd practice on the course that you're going to be doing so that you can find those markers on land that are going to guide you. Now, even though there are normally swim buoys out marking the way, you can't always see them. So it is best to find something on land that is always going to be fixed and always going to be there, rather than the swim buoys. Now, when you are in a wetsuit, as is often the case with open water swimming, it makes people a lot more confident, they're a lot more buoyant, and you stay warmer. So particularly for the longer distances and in cooler conditions, wetsuits are a good idea, but they do change your body position. As I said, they make you more buoyant, but they're also a little bit more restrictive around the shoulders. So again, it changes your stroke. So that's why you are going to want to practice being in your wetsuit, swimming in the ocean, so that you get used to that feeling, and then you can make sure you know how to put your wetsuit on properly to minimize any restriction in the shoulders. But the most important thing of all is confidence. So again, getting out there, getting comfortable in the water, knowing where you're going, and then that's going to relieve a lot of stress and anxiety on the day. If you've got any questions, let me know about the swim. Otherwise, we're going to move on now to the bike part. So again, about 2 to 3 sessions per week is about the magic number, but the timing of these sessions and the amount of time you dedicate them will be different to the swim. So in the event, you'll probably spend about 50% of your total time on the bike. So you should spend about 50% of your available training time on your bike training. Now, you can use a mix of terrain, so you can use hills for strength, On the speed work, you'll use something a bit flatter, and then you want at least one of those rides to be a longer endurance ride to build your base fitness. And what I mean by a longer ride will be longer than your race distance, particularly for the shorter stuff. If you were doing something like Ironman, you would very rarely go that long. But for these shorter distances, going on a little bit longer than the event will help with your confidence. Now, any bike is going to do to start with, really within reason. But what you want to make sure is that it is safe and comfortable for the distance that you're doing. So if it's a mountain bike, a road bike, it's all going to be fine if it has clipped-in pedals. If it doesn't, it's all going to be good as long as it's roadworthy and safe and it fits you properly. The more you ride, the more you'll start to know whether the bike is actually the right size for you, because your body will tell you that it's not. You'll start to get sore backs, sore legs, sore knees, all of that sort of thing. Now, in saying that, cycling isn't overly taxing on the body compared to running. It is more taxing than swimming. So swimming has the ability to do a lot more interval sessions and speed work in it because you haven't got the impact on the body, so you tend to recover a bit faster. With cycling, you can still get some quite decent mileage in. And the good thing about cycling is that it is a lower impact on your body and your knees. So you get a little bit of crossover with your running fitness as well through cycling, because it's still more of a cardiovascular and similar systems compared with swimming. So even if you are injured through running, if you can still cycle and you're okay to do that, you can hopefully still get to race day, easing up on the running, but continuing with the cycling because of the less impact. However, in saying that, still not every session should be flat out and as fast as you can go. As I said, we want those slower endurance rides and having a little bit of a mix of pace, so that, again, you're training your body to build up your aerobic, your base, and then training for if you want to add a little bit of intensity. And some of you may not want to do that. Some of you might just want to go slow and steady wins the race, and that's absolutely fine. You don't need to worry about speed work or anything like that. You just need to worry about building up your endurance, building up your distance so that you're comfortable on the day. Now, if you are nervous about the bike and nervous about training on the roads, that's perfectly normal as well. I know many of my athletes are a little bit nervous about training on the roads with traffic and other road users. So what I would advise is this. It is recommended that you train on the road, particularly if you can have a little bit of a course recce as well. It will build with your familiarity with the course and the road, what it's like, whether it's bumpy, whether it's got potholes, any hazards and things that you need to look out for. But of course, if you're a little bit nervous about it, then that's going to be a little bit off-putting. So train when traffic is less busy. So early mornings are usually great. You can also find roads that are less used than others. So avoiding like the main highways and the main routes into CBDs and that sort of thing. Make sure you wear brightly colored clothing and lights. Brightly colored helmet as well is another good one, just so that you stand out. Try not to wear black. And take your space on the road. Be confident about your space. While you need to stay left, don't stay so far left that you have to weave in and out to avoid grates, to avoid things in gutters. That weaving is going to be distracting to drivers, and it makes you unpredictable as to what you're going to do if you're constantly weaving out and around things. So try to look ahead. Try to see the obstacles that are coming up and anticipate where you need to go rather than making a sudden movement. But in saying that, Indoor trainers are a really good option as well, training indoors, especially if you're nervous about the road and if you have young kids and can't always leave the house or find someone to babysit for you. So the benefits of indoor trainers, you can stay at home, so tick. They're safer than busy roads, tick. So really good if you're getting used to training and used to riding your bike. And you also get more bang for your buck time-wise, which means, for example, if you spend 45 minutes on an indoor trainer, it's the same as about 60 minutes outside, because you can't freewheel. If you stop pedaling, you're not going anywhere inside. Nothing's happening. Obviously, if you freewheel outside going down a hill, you're still going to go down the hill. However, there are a few downsides, which you can probably guess. You don't learn bike handling skills, particularly if you're in something that's fixed in, it's holding you, you can't fall off your bike. It also means that you don't really learn how to adjust for weather conditions and gradient changes. It's also usually a lot hotter inside, so you sweat a lot more and then tend to wear a lot less. So it is a really good idea to still ride your bike outside so you can get used to those variables that might affect you on your event day. Awesome. So if everyone's still with me, again, if you've got any questions as we go, please pop them in. Those are my tips for the bike. And now we'll go over on to my tips for the run or walk. So I'm not advocating for one or the other. You can run or walk, or you can do a mixture of both. It is up to you. What I would just say is what you intend to do on race day is how you intend to train. So again, aiming for 2 to 3 runs a week. But if you do not currently run, whether it's injury or whether it's fitness or whether you just don't go out and just start running 2 to 3 times a week. You need to build into running. As I said at the start, it's a high impact one. It's the one where you've sort of got the highest risk of injuring yourself through that impact. So build into it slowly and steadily. Training on a mix of terrain as well, like training on soft surfaces when you're starting, will help your body adjust rather than always training on concrete and hard surfaces. Like with cycling, hills will help with strength. Flatter terrain if you're doing more speed work or want a more consistent pace. Again, practicing varying your pace if you do want to run faster, or whether you want to do a run-walk strategy. That's the same thing as varying your pace. You might walk, then you will run, then you might walk, run, etc. But follow the 80-20% rule. Now, what the 80-20% rule, if you don't know it, is 80% of your running, of your sessions are easy. So that's a conversational pace. You're not getting puffed when you talk. The other 20% is your higher intensity, your hard stuff. Except if you're starting, then everything is easy until you have built up that base. Now, be aware, as I said, running's high impact, so we want to slowly build up. So a 10% rule. So what that means is you add on 10% distance as a general rule, or 10% intensity every week. Now, every week, but it's not week on week on week on week. You will do that for maybe a few weeks, then you will regress a little bit and have that recovery. Then you'll start building up again, regress a little bit and have that recovery. It's also going to depend on the event distance and what you're running towards. So for example, if you're doing the 5K run, you don't need to build up to be able to do like a 15, 20K run unless you're training for something else and you want to. You can sort of cap yourself around somewhere between that 5 to 10K mark. It is good, again, with these shorter distances, if you can, to build up a little bit more, 1 for confidence and 2 for that endurance that you know you can run further than that on the race or the event day itself. The other thing that I want for women and for mums is to be mindful of your pelvic floor, okay? So once you've had a baby, you're always postpartum. Some women will have issues with their pelvic floor when their kids are young or when in that early postpartum, that first year. Some women might experience it later on, maybe when they go through menopause. But if you have leaking when you're running, whether it be poos, wheeze, or farts, I highly recommend seeing a woman's health physio and seeing why that is happening. Is it a weakness in your pelvic floor? Is it an over tightness in your pelvic floor? Is it something to do with the way that you are breathing and you're not controlling that internal pressure? And so basically it's escaping out one of your orifices. That doesn't mean you need to stop running. There may be ways that you can still run, and it might just mean you have to do some other strength work for your pelvic floor to help as you build up that running fitness. But please know it's common, it's not normal. But just because it's not normal doesn't mean you can't do something about it and there's something wrong with you. It's just that we don't talk about it enough, so a lot of the stuff just goes under the radar. Now, going on to that strength training, highly recommended, not just for your pelvic floor, but for the rest of your body as well. It doesn't have to take a long time. It doesn't have to be overly complicated, but strength training, particularly for running, is going to be your best bet for helping to minimize your risk of injuries, particularly if you are prone to certain types of injuries. And women, unfortunately, because of our, generally speaking, wider hips, are more prone to knee injuries because our hips are out, and then we generally have the knees come in a little bit more. So we need to do a little bit more work around our glutes, the sides of our hips, to help keep our knees tracking over our toes properly. And I also see a lot of people with weak ankles, which means they tend to collapse, pronate in, roll in, which creates strain as well. Now, if you have any niggles, I encourage you to rest them. If that niggle persists, to see a physio to nip it in the butt before it gets you. We want to get you to your event. Now, not every niggle will require complete rest. Not every niggle will require a trip to the physio. If it's not getting better, I would definitely see a physio. Some things might just hurt a little bit when you start training, but you need to be able to differentiate between muscle soreness and something that's actually a little bit more serious. Okay, finally, in running, as actually with any of your training, swim, bike, run, the whole shebang, be mindful of your menstrual cycle. If you've still got one and you are not on a hormonal pill, then you are going to have a low hormone phase, which is generally the first half of your cycle and starts with day one of your bleed. Now, even though that can be inconvenient, it's usually a really good sign, right? Because you feel great, or you might, unless you have really bad period related symptoms, but all your hormones are low, which means your stress levels are low, your cortisol in your system is low, you're ready for high intensity, and you generally recover faster. So really good if your race does fall when you have your period or shortly after. When you're in your high hormone phase, so again, the second half after ovulation, high hormone, so all the hormones are going high, including cortisol and stress. So it will take you longer to recover from higher intensity sessions. Your body is a little bit more focused on A, preparing the womb for a potential pregnancy, and then B, shedding the uterine lining when it realizes you're not pregnant. So your immune system can also take a bit of a back seat there. So better to do that in endurance pace, ease off a little bit, and just be mindful of the fact that you're a little bit more prone to illnesses around this time. Okay, let's move on to brick sessions here. So this is where we're going to have a little bit of a mixture of that swim, bike, run, not into a full triathlon yet, but we're still focusing on the training. Has anyone heard of a brick before or know what that is? It's obviously up on the screen, but the brick is a little bit of a weird word, right? And doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense when you first hear it. But what it can mean, has a lot of different meanings, is that it's a bike, what is it? Sorry. An acronym for bike, run, and combination. Okay. There are a lot of other sort of meanings for it, like your legs feel like bricks after you get off the bike and try and run. But essentially, it's where you do two or more of the disciplines back to back with as small a gap in between them as you can. So the main purpose is to get the body used to the quick transitions that you have in triathlon between each of the three disciplines. So who here, have you ever experienced that jelly leg feeling if you've done a triathlon before, or if you've tried to run straight off the bike and the legs just sort of feel like they're wobbling all over the place and it takes a little while to get into it? If you have, that's one of the reasons why you want to practice doing a brick, because it will help your body recognize that feeling and get used to it a little bit more quickly. So they are highly effective workouts, really great things to practice. And as I said, it's going to help you get you used to that wobbly leg feeling, but it's also a great time to practice just the transitions and your event simulation. So what gear you're going to need, for example, what if you eat or drink something on the bike, is it going to give you a stomach upset when you try to run? Because typically when you run, if food's still digesting in your stomach, it can feel a little bit unpleasant if you're not used to it. So you want to try and get your body used to that in practice and trialing certain products, different things, different foods in your training. The good thing is when you're doing the shorter distance stuff, you don't need as much. When you do longer distance stuff, you're going to need to start eating something to get through the race. But also just in terms of gear, like where's your hat? Where's your sunglasses? Do you want to wear them? What about, are you changing shoes over? Are you putting socks on? Do you need to change outfits or anything like that? That's all the sort of things you want to start practicing and thinking about in these bricks, and seeing if you can do it as quickly as you can so that you don't lose too much time in transition that could be spent out on the course. So typically you do these sort of things closer to your race date as you start to get a little bit more specific into the event. And the most common brick, as the name suggested at the start, is the bike to run. But you can also do a swim to bike, a run bike run. In the past, I've done indoor sessions where I've sat on my trainer and I've done various indoor sets, and then I get off and I do a 5-minute run, jump back on the bike, do something else at a different intensity, jump back up and do another run, just to get my legs used to that quick transition. That's something that's a little bit more advanced, but it just gives you an example of, it doesn't have to be just a bike to run. It can be mixed up in a number of different ways. But since the whole point of a brick workout is to do the sports back to back, you're going to get the most benefit from them if you choose to do them, if you can do them as quickly as possible. So as I said, make sure if you're going to go from your bike to your run, before you get on your bike, set out your run gear, your running shoes, your hat, your sunglasses, so that when you get home or get off your trainer, or even in your boot of your car once you finish, you have that stuff all ready to go, so that you can try and replicate the event as closely as you can. Now, the run off the bike, if we're focusing on that type of brick, doesn't need to be that long or fast. The whole point is just to get your body and your legs used to it. So you can run for as long as you need to until your legs feel like they've returned to a sort of a normality again for you when you're running or walking. So an example for a shorter distance course would be, you could go out on your bike, you could do 8 minutes easy as a warm-up, then you could do another 12 minutes pushing the pace a little bit more, and then 5 minutes at a harder effort. And the reason why you're finishing with that harder effort is to start to replicate that jelly-like feeling, and you're coming off not sort of fully rested. So that's about 25 minutes on the bike. Then as quick a transition as you can, getting ready, and then go out and run for 5 to 10 minutes, seeing how your legs feel after that bike set. Right, let's get on to then the next one. If anyone has any questions about bricks, put them in, but hopefully that answered your question, Marie, actually, because you were talking or asked before in the chat about how to transition between the different sporting codes. As I said, I'm going to talk a little bit more about transition tips later on, but if you still have any residual questions after that, let me know. So what I want to talk about now, though, is what about all the gear? Do you need to spend a lot of money when you're doing triathlon? Do you need a lot of gear? Triathletes are well known for buying a lot of stuff and getting sucked in to buy a lot of fancy gear with the promise that they are going to go faster. But you don't need it. Especially if you're starting out, you don't need every fancy piece of tech out there. The most important thing is to simply invest in a proper training program. As I said at the start, consistency and sort of sticking to it. Now, the other rule that is the other guide actually that is great to follow with this is, if you're starting out, try and borrow from family and friends as much as you can. And if you can't borrow them, there might be an option to hire them. This gives you an opportunity to try different things, different products, different styles of things before you make a big investment, and you can see what actually works for you and what is actually useful and what actually doesn't work for you. Not everything is going to suit the same everyone. Also, start small. You don't need the most expensive version of everything. My first triathlon, I started with a $99 wetsuit, and it worked fantastically for a number of years. It was only when I got more serious that I bought a more expensive wetsuit in the hopes of going faster. But I still have my $99 one that I can use for training, and save my more expensive one for the races. And again, you can upgrade later on, like I did. Even with my bike, I started with a very basic road bike. I clipped on some aero bars to it because I was doing longer distance stuff. And after a few years, I upgraded, and then I sell my other bikes off if I don't need them anymore. Okay, so let's have a look at what's actually on my list. So here is what I recommend. A wetsuit, and this is one of the things that generally you can hire from swim shops. There are a lot of different wetsuits out there, so hiring to try a few different models can make a lot of sense before you make a big investment to buy one. Wetsuit styles can also vary, so you really want one that fits you properly, and that might not be the same thing as your friend uses. Then tri-suit or togs, tri-suit and togs. The reason being, you're going to want togs for swimming in the pool, but then on race day, it's generally not a good idea to bike and run in your togs. They're not really designed for that, and they can cause a bit of chafing and not be the most comfortable things to run and bike in. Whereas a tri-suit is designed to be worn throughout all three. It has a little bit of a chamois in for the bike, but not too much that you can't run in it. And of course, it's quick drying, so you can chuck it on underneath your wetsuit to swim in it, or swim in it as a standalone suit as well. Now, that is a little bit of a luxury item, but I put it in there because it solves one of the issues of what to wear during triathlon. A lot of questions that I get asked, and one that was on the Facebook post was what to wear from swim to bike. So tri-suit gives that a big tick, and you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to go down the option of getting a tri-suit. You can wear things like, I used to wear a sports bra and maybe like some lycra shorts, some tight fitting shorts, and then I'd just jump on the bike or run from from them, and I'd just chuck on a t-shirt, a dry t-shirt over the top once I got out of my wetsuit. You're still going to want to wear something tight under it, particularly for things like the Kapiti Women's Triathlon. There's no private change area as such, so you're gonna want to be wearing something that you are comfortable in public in. So that's where the sports bra, and make sure again it's something that dries easily. You don't want sort of like a heavy cotton one, you do, and you want something that has good coverage obviously as well when it's wet. Tri-suits anyway don't generally come with proper sports bras built in, so if you're a more heavy set woman, you are going to want to wear a sports bra underneath your tri-suit anyway. Yeah, goggles and cap. The thing with the cap is that you end up accumulating so many. So if you haven't got one yet, you can ask around and you'll probably find someone who just is willing to give you as many as you need. I have so many. You generally get them when you enter events, so you just start accumulating a lot. So it's something that you really should buy as a last resort if you can't find anywhere else. Goggles obviously is again a bit more personal. I'd spend a little bit more money on goggles because they need to fit you properly, and if they're uncomfortable, it is just the worst thing in the world. Same with the helmet and a bike. You don't have to buy the most expensive, you don't have to buy the flashiest, but you do need to buy something roadworthy and in good condition. The bike, again, any type, mountain bike, road bike, whatever. Running shoes, socks, sports bra, and a drink bottle. Now, the luxury items that I've put on are things like a GPS watch and a heart rate monitor. I do think you should probably have some sort of timing watch so that you know when you're training how long you've been out for, etc. But GPS watches start to get really expensive pretty quickly, and if you're not going to use all the functions, then it's not really worth your while. Sperm helmets, do you know those? Those are the ones with the pointy ends. A lot of people buy them thinking they're going to go really fast, but they end up just being a bit of a waste of money if you can't actually be in aero position and hold yourself still and all that. So leave that stuff for later. Again, aero bars, tri bike, something for later on, longer distances, a bit more experience, power meter, clip-in bike shoes. So that's on my luxury item, not on my recommended side, because as I said, you don't have to have bike shoes and clip-in bike shoes to do your first triathlon. If you're not used to it, it is really unnerving being clipped in, so it does take a bit of practice, but I would recommend it later on because they do make you go a lot faster with a lot less effort once you get used to clipping in and out of them. And again, bike computer, it's another piece of gadgetry that you don't really need, nice to have, something to get maybe later down the track, but you don't have to have it now. So is there anything in that list that you think should be on there, or that you've seen people using and going, but don't I need X, don't I need this? It's a really short list. So you don't actually need to go out and spend a lot of money or accumulate a lot of gear, despite maybe what you previously thought. So if you, running shoes, no? So running shoes, any particular type? Yeah, whatever suits you best, Marie. So I would stick to brands that are known for being a running shoes, like Adidas, Nike, New Balance, Ultras, Brooks, those sort of ones. But the golden rule is whatever you wear that is comfortable for you is the best shoe for you, and ideally doesn't give you injuries, but that would fall into the line of it's not comfortable. Running shoes are designed to fit you and be comfortable from the very first run. There is no such thing as wearing in a running shoe anymore. So if you are in a shop and it's you're trying it on, and try and have a bit of a run around. Like walking up and down the shop may not be quite enough. A shoe clinic obviously have treadmills that you can run in, but try and find a space where you can give it a little bit of a jog. If you have any wear or any friction or any areas of that doesn't quite feel right, don't get it. It's not going to get any better. It's not going to wear in. Find something that fits you perfectly, that you feel really good in and feel really comfortable in. So that's the golden rule. And if you need help with fitting shoes, you can go to somewhere like Shoe Clinic. You will pay a bit more for your shoes, but you should get better advice about fit and a shoe type that suits you. Particularly if you do have things like flat feet, or you need more arch support, then you're going to want a shoe that delivers on those a little bit more than maybe someone who can do a more neutral running shoe. So I hope that answers your question. Let's go on to the event day itself. So what do you need to do, bring, and set up, of course? So essentially what you need to bring can be sort of a short answer. It's everything that was on my recommended list, right? But what you want to start with is make sure you know the timing for the day. When does your transition open, close, your actual event, because normally there are lots of different events, different distances, when it starts, and your travel time. How long is it going to take you to get there? Because then you can plan your morning from when you wake up, when you're going to have breakfast, when you're going to leave, and when you're going to arrive, set up, etc. So you want to make sure you get there with plenty of time to calmly set up and register. So what I recommend you do is the night before, lay out everything that you think you're going to need and go over in your head with a bit of positive visualization what you need to do in transition, what you need to set up, what you need to do in T1 and T2. So do you know T1 and T2? T1 is when you exit the swim. T2 is when you get off your bike. Transition 1, transition 2. And then visualize what you're going to do in each of those stages, in each of those transitions, and make sure that matches up with what you are going to have in your transition and what you're bringing. Also, what I'd like you to do at least the day before, and especially the morning of, is check over your bike. Make sure it's in good working order. There's no glass, etc. in the tires. The brakes are working. They're not rubbing on the wheels. All of that sort of stuff. Your helmet's in good condition. When you put your bike in transition, also make sure it's in the right gear. If you're going up a hill to start, it's in an easy gear. The Kapiti Women's Triathlon's on the flat, so you don't want it in super easy gear because you're going to want to be able to have a bit of resistance when you jump on rather than just spinning out super quick. Now, the Kapiti Women's Triathlon have the option of registering the day before. So if you get anything there like your timing chips, swim cap, or anything else specific to your event, make sure you're bringing that with you. So when you lay everything out the night before, you've got all that stuff there as well, and then you pack it all up into the bags you're going to take with you on the day. Obviously, you are going to bring your swim, bike, and run gear. Everything that you are bringing, you should have worn and practiced before race day. Don't buy a flash tri-suit and save it for race day. Make sure you wear it and test it before race day so you can see if it's going to chafe, if it doesn't fit properly, or anything like that. You don't want to be surprised by something on race day, okay? So test all your gear before race day. You're also going to want to bring any spare clothing in case weather turns. Sometimes the forecast might be a bit changeable. So you might want to bring, say, for example, a lightweight rain jacket in case it starts raining when you're in the swim and you want to wear a rain jacket on the bike. If it doesn't rain, that's all good. You don't have to put it on. You can just leave it in transition. Now, you also want to bring items like a towel, lubricant, talcum powder. Jandals, gloves, special food and drink. Now the towel for drying, especially your feet off and getting rid of any sand or whatever as you exit the swim, taking off the wetsuit, etc. Lubricant, you'll put this on before you get in the water, but like around the neck and things, around the wetsuit, around the chamois area if you're wearing like bike shorts. Even if you're not wearing bike shorts or a tri-suit, you may want to lubricate up around that area as well, to stop with chafing, if you chafe between the thighs, under the arms, anything like that. Talcum powder is really great for putting in shoes to help absorb a little bit of moisture. Jandals, because your bike and your run shoes are going to be left in transition, yeah? So you're going to need something to wear for the rest of the time until the start date. And jandals are good because you can usually walk down to the beach, chuck them off. If they get lost or whatever, it's not usually a big deal. The reason why I say gloves are because we want to stop our nails digging into the wetsuit and creating little holes as we try and put it on. Wetsuits need to be tight to put on, so it can involve a little bit of pulling and tugging. So if you have some gloves, you can put them on and that will help protect the wetsuit. Special fruit and drink, again, that's stuff that you're going to use for the event itself. Now, the other good thing about bringing a towel is you can usually hang it over your bike to easily identify your bike. Now, if you have a brightly coloured towel or something a bit unique, this is really great. Now, the Kapiti Women's Triathlon, I don't think have any rules that prohibit you from putting it over your bike. There are some races, more serious ones that don't allow you to do that to your bike, but it can be a really good way of when you exit the swim, gaining your bearings, especially when there's a lot of chaos, a lot of people around, a lot of bikes around, maybe that will look similar to yours, to have something that makes it just stand out that little bit. Now, I've also, this is another good reason as to why you need to set up and practice all of this stuff beforehand, because I've heard plenty of experience of people who have forgotten like their bike shoes or their running shoes. So again, set it all up the night before, make sure you have everything, make sure you visualize what you need. Allow time for a proper warm-up and get into your wetsuit properly. So again, you want to get there with enough time. You can set up calmly so you don't forget anything, forget to do anything, and then give yourself enough time for a warm-up. Warming up in the water is great. Some events won't allow that depending on how they're doing their starts. I'm pretty sure the Kapiti Women's Triathlon does. So you can get in, get used to the water temperature, get your bearings, and then get that sort of proper warm up. If you can't warm up in the water, then you can warm up on the land by getting into your wetsuit and then going for a little run up and down the beach, doing some arm movements, big circles. Again, you can do this even if you are in the water, so that you can test that you've got that wetsuit on properly around the shoulders. And again, you get that heart rate up and that body temperature up a little bit to prepare you for the swim start. Because if the swims, well, regardless of whether the swim starts a deep water or a beach, Kapiti Women's, it's a beach, you're going to be like running or walking into the water. If you take off at a big pace without a warm up, you're going to hit the water and feel a little bit panicky as you get a bit breathless as you go into that water. So warm up, it is important. Make sure as well to pack a spare towel and clothes for after. Don't rely on the towel you've got in transition, it might get soaked. So bring something spare, also bring something to eat afterwards, because you will be hungry from all that energy burn in the actual event itself. Okay, so as promised, some tips for your transition to save you a little bit of time. We want those transitions to be as quick as we can so that you can get out on your bike and your run as soon as possible. So set up your transition in the order you want things. So you're going to come in and you're going to want your bike stuff first, and then you're going to want your run stuff. So don't put your running shoes closest to you, because you're just going to be reaching over to try and get the bike shoes, and then everything will get all mixed up and all higgledy-piggledy. The other big mistake that I see people make is they lay down their towel, then they lay out everything very neatly on it, They come out of the swim, they whip their towel up to dry themselves, and then everything goes flying everywhere. You are gonna want your towel first. So either lay your towel over the top of everything or put it on your bike, like I mentioned before. Also, what you're going to need pretty early on is your helmet. So make sure that that's in a good spot. Unclipped is preferable because you don't want to unclip, put it on, clip, waste of time. Have it unclipped. If you can rest it on your handlebars, that's great because then it's right there at basically your eye level. You don't have to bend down. And the other thing is you need that helmet clipped on before you can touch your bike. When you come off your bike, you have to rack your bike before you can unclip your helmet. If you anyone who follows and saw Hayden Wild, he got penalised because his hand was on his clip and he hadn't quite racked his bike, and the official thought he'd unclipped, so he got penalised for that in the Olympics. So clip your helmet, then you're taking your bike off, put your bike back, unclip your helmet. Rolling up your socks and pop them in each shoe. So what I mean by that is you'll have your socks, and then I want you to roll them down so that they're nice and small, and then you're just going to pop them in your shoe like that. If you've got a left and right foot sock, you'll put it in your left and right shoe, and then you'll be easily just able to come grab that, pop your foot in and roll it up. If you just come in and have your socks like this, the first thing you do is you roll your socks up to put them on. So have that already done. Bit of talcum powder in the shoe if you're using your bike shoes, bit of talcum powder in the bike shoe. It's up to you whether you want to wear socks or not. I personally don't for the shorter distance stuff. It is a comfort versus time thing, but that's where the talcum powder helps to get a bit of moisture dried up so that it is a little bit more comfortable. Now, the lubrication point. So when you're doing the lubrication for the wetsuit and for your chamois, that's generally a thicker cream, like a chamois cream or something like that, that's going to stay on and is quite waterproof. You can lube up or put like some thinner barrier cream or like really slick moisturizer or baby oil or something like that on your arms and legs, and then that'll make it really easy to pull the wetsuit off. It won't get as stuck to your skin as it can do, and then you'll find it a lot easier to pull it off. Now, bungee cords as well. I love these even for beginners, because this is what I've got on here. You tie them up and then you can just pull them open, put your foot in, and you don't have to tie up your laces. So I keep them on my shoes all the time, never have to tie up laces again. You have them tight enough that your foot doesn't fall off, but loose enough that you have that give there to get the shoe on and off really easy. Again, as I said at the start, well, actually, I don't know if I said that at the start of the slide. If you can do something while moving, do it. So practicing putting on your hat and sunglasses while you're walking or running away. You don't need to stand still to do everything. A lot of the stuff you do, but there is some stuff that you can do while you're moving. But practice it. Don't do anything that you haven't practiced, because it might backfire on you, and then it will give you a bit of a shock to your confidence. So I hope that all makes sense or has given you a few ideas. You don't have to do all of them. Don't have to do any of them. I would really prefer, though, that you didn't put your towel underneath your shoes. But there are some things in there that you can do, even as a beginner, that will just help your transition go a lot more smoothly and not add time by making silly little mistakes that just cause you to get flustered. Okay. So if you are training for the KWT, the Kapiti Women's Triathlon, like I think a few of you are, please come and join in the group training Saturday sessions starting the 14th of January 2023, and they're going to run for 6 weeks. So every Saturday leading up to the event, we're going to start with some swim orientation, practicing the biking on the course and running on the course, but also those transitions and those brick sessions, as well as a little mini triathlon, just so you can put some of these things into practice that I've talked about here in those actual training sessions and see what works for you or see what doesn't work for you. And because I'll be taking those sessions, I'll be there. You can pick my brain, ask me questions about how to do some of this stuff in real life. Now, the Kapiti Women's Triathlon website has an example training plan and some other resources. Please check those out. They will give you a little bit more of an idea of what to do as well. But I do have a special offer for those who have registered for this masterclass here. So if you want a little bit more of a detailed plan, I've put one together especially for the KWT on those shorter distances. And it ties in with these Saturday sessions as well. But if you can't make them, there are alternatives. But it's perfect for beginners. But the other thing is that it gives you a little bit more guidance, puts a little bit of yoga and stretching in there as well, which is really great for getting rid of some of those niggles or preventing some injuries. But it's also just sometimes nice to have someone else tell you what to do. It saves a lot of mental energy and procrastination, wondering what you should be doing each day. So I'm offering a 50% discount for you guys. So it's normally $50. You can get that program for $25. I'll just pop in the page that you can go to get that offer in the chat. But what you've got two options here. So this is going to take you to a Training Tilt platform, which you can sign up to, use the code, get the discount, get the training plan. You just put in the event date and it will put you back, your 6 weeks of training will put in. Now, obviously we're more than 6 weeks out. So of course you can start earlier whenever you want. But this offer is only going to be available until the end of the week. Now, if you're a little bit not so great with technology, what you can also do is email me and I will provide you with the PDF of what is on that platform, and then you can just print it out, put it on your fridge or whatever, and follow it along through there. And yeah, I'll be emailing out some details tomorrow anyway about it, along with a recording of this session so that you have it there as another resource if you want to go back and look over everything. Also, please take note of my contact details. If you would like to get in touch, ask me any questions offline. If you have any questions, now is the time to ask, because we'll wrap up shortly. And if you want to have a little bit more of an in-depth conversation with me about maybe your own training, something a little bit more individual, or you want to talk about the offer and the 6-week program that I've put together for the Kapiti Women's Triathlon, again, I'm offering a free 30-minute call. You can go into that link there and find a time slot that suits you. I've also got my email, my website details, my phone number, and please give me a follow on Facebook and Instagram, especially if you liked this, because I also will be posting helpful tips for triathlon and running, and then especially in the lead up to the triathlon, the KWT triathlon in February next year. So has anyone got any questions that they want to ask me now? Feel free to pop them in the chat. You can even unmute yourself if you would like to, because that's the end of my spiel. So I hope you have enjoyed that and you got something from it. I'll end the recording now, and then if anyone wants to ask me anything offline without it being recorded, you're more than welcome to do so.